What? Speak up.
I said, all right, that's good.
What?
We're all fine here.
What?
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 What? All right, welcome to podcast episode 5, everybody. How are you? Have you been watching the other ones over on David's channel? No?
You should be.
neither have I.
Subscribe to my channel, because my channel is better than Xavier's. And you can watch one of these a week.
He's not wrong.
Because the way it's going to go in the future is that every fourth one will be on his channel, and then the other 3 are going to be on mine. So you're missing 75% of these if you're just on Xavier's channel. So go and subscribe to me immediately.
Yeah,
or else.
So there's a monthly podcast for me and a weekly podcast for him. Just so it's, because we were thinking about alternating every other week, but I figured that, it's more his thing, and he's better at keeping track of it and posting it and being scheduled and organized and all those things. All of my subscribers, you can tell I'm probably not any of those. So I feel like I was like, I'd be more comfortable if he was doing the majority of them, but we still alternate.
Because I'm doing the majority of the work.
Yeah. Well, who's editing this one?
You are. Because it's getting up on your channel.
Shit. I had so many things I wanted to do today. And now I gotta... Actually, it only takes an hour. Never mind.
Yeah.
Alright, so what have we been watching and reading, buddy?
Well, I saw Pirates 5 on Saturday. And
Based on Twitter, I
I'm
could
still
tell
bitter
you had
about
a great
that.
time.
I'm still
Yeah.
bitter. So I'm not going to talk about that now, but I'm thinking it inspired me to do a video that I'm going to try to edit this week. So stay tuned for that. But in other news, I've been watching some Spongebob.
What brought this on? I remember you texted me the other day just saying, hey, is SpongeBob actually worth watching? And I said, yeah, just everything before the movie, pretty much.
Well, I just found some SpongeBob clips on YouTube, and I thought, oh yeah, hey, Amazon Video has some of this, so why not go and watch them? So I've been watching season 1 of SpongeBob ever since.
What do you think?
Do you have anything to say about this?
I don't know. I remember being quite fond of those early episodes. I used to have a lot of VHS tapes of them as a kid that I had watched, kind of on an infinite loop. It's not a bad show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a while anyway. Then you get to season 11, and it's just oh God, please cancel it.
So it's like a kid's version of The Simpsons.
Yeah, I could see that. It's got a character that's yellow and annoying.
And also, it used to be good, but then it isn't anymore. Are you excited for the 3rd SpongeBob movie?
Oh God, or season 12 coming this fall. I'm just waiting for either on The Simpsons or SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents, one of them. One of the voice actors is going to just accidentally get hit by a bus, and then they're gonna be oh shit, do we just we already greenlit it for 6 more seasons, what do we do? And then they're going to have a very awkward recast, and all the little kids will be
wait for that.
Why does Patrick sound like an elderly black man? Because the other guy died. Oh, that's horrible.
Yep.
I feel bad for Tom Kenny,
but
because
in terms of this first season, it's been pretty interesting because every year, the only time I ever watched SpongeBob was when I would fly to Florida to visit my uncle and my cousins and have a family reunion, and I'd just watch that on the TV in the little beach house hotel that we were at. That's the only time I'd ever watch SpongeBob in the whole year. And I kind of got familiar enough with it to know about all the the cliches, how Squidward is a snob and he likes to play the clarinet and everything. Seriously, Squidward is me basically in real life. I even have a clarinet that I don't know how to play very well. But it's kind of scary just watching Squidward because it's like looking in a mirror.
Does that make
but
me
other than
SpongeBob
that,
to you?
What?
I feel like I'm your
Sorry.
SpongeBob sometimes.
Yeah, you're SpongeBob. Sometimes you're SpongeBob and sometimes you're Patrick.
Oh, it's even that. I feel like I should be insulted.
You would be insulted if it weren't true.
Yeah, well, but I'm glad
it's funny
because
I've been watching the early shows, and it's kind of funny to see like all the characters and all the cliches before they became cliches. Like,
yeah, like before it
how
was
the early
annoying.
episodes of Patrick and SpongeBob harassing Squidward before it became every single episode Patrick
before
and
it
SpongeBob
became like the routine.
harassing Squidward. And
well, I remember like very early on, because I watched like that show religiously until I was like 9, and then I just had gotten so fed up with it. But I remember I was always super pissed off every time it was another new episode about Squidward, because I for a while I was like, God, he's just such a dick. Like, why can't we just have an episode where SpongeBob is goofy and weird and fun by himself? Why does it always got to be like bugging Squid? Like, there's a lot of episodes in the later seasons that are just entirely about Squidward with SpongeBob as a supporting character, and it's bizarre.
I identify with Squidward so much, though. I feel it's kind of hard for me to watch an episode where SpongeBob and SpongeBob and Patrick harass Squidward, because it almost feels like they're harassing me.
Like, it just feels like an assault on the senses. Like, you're like, wait a second.
I feel so sad for Squidward.
This hits too close to home.
Yeah, it does. So that's the funny part. But it's a good show. Like, it's kind of creative and the jokes are good a lot of the time. And like, a lot of the time you think it's going to go one way, but then it doesn't. And then the jokes are interesting and inventive because your mind is misled and goes in a completely different direction. So,
well, it was a very clever show once upon a time.
It's entertaining.
It eventually just becomes full-on gross-out humor. Like, it's just every time they can think of something weird and, like, semi-gory happening, they shove it in. So, like, sometimes SpongeBob gets caught in a door and his face is sheared off and you can see the muscle underneath. It's weird how they, like, of all the censorship and, like dumbing down cartoons get lately, SpongeBob has gotten progressively darker and grosser. Or there's an episode where Squidward drops a couch on his toe, and for some reason he has a giant single toenail on his squid tentacle that gets snapped and ripped off, and it's really violent and well illustrated and, like, realistic, and fuck. Like, I don't want to see that. I have no idea why they thought, hey, we need to put a lot of detail into making this scene where his toenail rips off, in its entirety.
And like I actually watched the second SpongeBob movie because it was on Amazon, and it was the opening when Plankton is attacking the Krusty Krab yet again, and I just think, man, how long has Plankton been doing this? Like, you need to. Somebody needs to have an intervention with him, because it's becoming a problem. Like,
it's insanity. He's doing the same thing over and over.
I get that you're trying to conduct industrial espionage, and gain a command over your rival, but it's coming to the point where it's becoming such an obsession that you don't seem to have a life outside of that.
Well, every SpongeBob video game has him as the main villain, and it's really formulaic. It's just, Plankton's doing something else bad. Better stop him.
So I think we need to have an intervention with Plankton.
Or just sit him down, look him in his single eye, and tell him it's not worth it, buddy. You're neglecting.
There are other restaurants out there that you. How about you take the chum bucket and turn it into a Mexican restaurant. Make burritos.
shit. Do you know how well burritos would sell underwater? I mean, I don't think there's any burritos down there. The fish would love that. I'd love that. I would get a diving suit. I would go down there, and I would find those burritos.
So I think that's all we have to say about SpongeBob, is that it was good once upon a time, but boy, is it getting long in the tooth.
Oh, yeah, it falls off real hard after a while. I kind of want you to, like, watch past season 4 or 5 or whatever. And like
they only have season 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 for free.
Okay, well, if you can find other ways to watch it, like, check out the first season after the movie, and I think you can, like, immediately spot a difference. Like, the writing is different, and then the animation's a little bit crisper. And then you can just see the seeds being planted for it to be terrible later. And it's just this very gradual slope until it just, I think around like season 8, just falls super hard. I am still very upset about that episode where they're like, SpongeBob and Sandy are gonna get married. And I was like, oh my god, really? And then I watched that episode, and it was just it was like a Family Guy style, like, what if joke sort of thing that lasted like 20 seconds.
Oh.
I feel like I should
and also,
sue someone.
Speaking of which, you kind of have to wonder why SpongeBob is still in boating school. Like, if you have this much of a psychological problem with driving, don't drive.
Okay.
Like, surely you'd just quit driving school by this point.
I mean, I'm terrified of cars, and I passed driving school.
So, yeah. Moving on.
The trick is to just keep signaling left, even
moving
when you're going
on.
right. All right, I've been watching. I've read the first couple of issues of that comic Preacher by Garth Ennis, because everyone knows how much I love that guy, and I think it's pretty good. Is you know, interesting to see some of his earlier works, and then I decided, for comparison's sake, I'd check out the first episode of the TV show, and I could see why people are a little bit pissed now, because, like, the TV show is, like, a little weird, and I think, I can't tell yet for sure, but I think they just decided to, like, exclude any religious references in it in favor of substituting space aliens.
Hey, did you know that Seth Rogen produces that show?
Yes, I did know that. I'm not happy about it. But, yeah, like, the first issue starts off, like, it has this really neat scene where the preacher is, like, talking with a couple of other characters that he's met along the adventure. Like, it's kind of a cold open, and then he's, like, recalling how they got there. And then it goes back to when he was at a bar a couple of months back, like, when he was still actually a preacher. And he walked in because he was, like, super drunk, and then just started, like, airing everyone's dirty laundry and, like, pointing fingers and going, you did this, you did that, and, like, everyone's confessionals all thrown back in their faces and talking about how shitty and horrible everyone in the town is.
So here's a question. Was he a Catholic preacher or what?
I think he's a Catholic, yeah. But, and because it's some town in Texas. And then after he gets beaten up by two guys... and then thrown out of the bar. Maybe? I don't know. I should go back and check. I think it just says that he's a preacher. Like
if you're talking about confessionals, that's strictly a Catholic thing. And the Bible Belt, which Texas is a part of, is more Protestant, typically more Baptist.
Huh. I don't know. But anyway... everyone goes to church the next day after... It doesn't... Okay, hold on. You're telling me that there's not a single Catholic church in all of Texas?
Well, they're not in the...
Is that where your suspension of...
probably isn't
this man is possessed by the spawn of a demon and an angel that takes over his body and uses him to annihilate everyone in a church and blow up, like, a small portion of Texas.
Well, all I'm saying... is that there probably isn't one in small-town rural Texas.
I bet you. You know what? All right, subscribers from a small town in rural Texas. Is there a Catholic church anywhere down there? Or am I just misspeaking and it's actually he's not even a Catholic priest at all? Did I make up the word confessional?
Well, I'm pretty sure there are no confessionals in Protestant worship. I should know.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
I want to put on an Irish accent and call you a Protestant whore, but I can't do a good enough Irish accent, and I also feel like that would be offensive.
You're racist against Irish people. So let's move on.
Fuck yeah. Okay,
I think that's all we have to say.
the TV show isn't as good as the book, but that was kind of a given.
Because it's produced by Seth Rogen.
Yeah, well, I think he's working on another show now, too. I can't remember it, but it was something I was like, hey, that sounds neat. And I saw his name in the credits, on IMDb, and I went, oh, never mind.
So, we are not going to have headlines this week, but we're going to have 3 featured news stories because we cannot talk about anything unless it is a comic book property, right?
Yep.
So, why don't you introduce our first story, buddy?
Well, we got a director, Gina Prince Bythewood, for the new Silver Sable and Black Cat female-led Spider-Man spin-off movie.
At Sony. Because we all know how well the last female-led spin-off movie based on a classic property went at Sony Pictures.
So anyway, I think this is yet another example
and this director is another TV director.
Yeah.
She directed the pilot for Marvel's upcoming Cloak and Dagger series.
Oh God.
And the Silver and Black script was originally written by the writer of Thor: The Dark World. And of course Amy Pascal is producing.
Oh God, it's just listing off bad things. Now, okay, here's my first major problem. This is another example of Sony being weird and deciding they want to have a Spider-Man cinematic universe without Spider-Man because now he's currently in the MCU, and I guess this and the Venom movie aren't connected to that, so it's just like, what? Do these characters, even deserve really to have their own movie? Okay, Venom I could see because he became his own character outside of Spider-Man. He's had 150 solo books. He just had his 150th issue. But for Black Cat, I don't think she's, or Silver Sable, either. I think
it's funny how they're both the two weak, not memorable female characters. They're teaming them up together in the hope that somehow they'll have enough star power between them to carry a movie.
I mean, if we're being honest, I think Black Cat is super cool because she's just a giant ripoff of Catwoman, except a little bit less annoying. Because you see, the problem with Catwoman is that she flirts with Batman, and Batman's like, "Nah, I'm not into it," and that dynamic goes on forever. While as with Spider-Man and Black Cat, she flirts with him, and he's like, "Okay." And they have a really goofy, interesting relationship because she's more attracted to Spider-Man than Peter Parker. So she makes him wear the mask when they have sex. Well, I don't like Silver Sable that much. I think she's kind of flat just because I am military person. I am tough. I look at her and see the same thing as GW Bridge from the old X-Force comics. It's just, here's a character I have white hair and a big gun, and I shoot dudes. I think her backstory is that her dad was a Nazi hunter.
How about I think what we can learn from this is Xavier is super excited for the Silver Sable and Black Cat movie because it's directed by a woman and it's going to be produced by a woman, and he's a super feminist, so he loves that.
Well, you notice how every time they have I don't want to say anything that'll upset anybody, but you notice how they are very specific about who they get to direct certain properties lately. The director of Black Panther had to have a certain sort of criteria, and the director of Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel both had to have a certain criteria.
Hey, wait. The director of Captain Marvel, the directors. One woman and one man.
Oh, okay. Are they like a couple, or are they
Nope,
besties,
they're
or
just
are
friends.
they just two random schmucks?
They're two friends.
Oh, okay, cool. So I don't know what the whole point of that is. I
And
just feel
remember
like
when
just
everybody
get
was
someone
super
who
angry
can.
when the Sony the Sony Mulan movie didn't have a female director?
Oh God, really?
Yeah,
Well, to make it worse, it should have been.
a
It should
female
have been
Asian director.
specifically a female Asian director. If it was like a white lady
It's a
or a
white
black lady directed
it's a white
Mulan,
lady
everyone should
directing
have.
the Disney Mulan movie.
Okay, who's directing the other Mulan movie? Since I know they're making two.
Yeah. But moving on, I think that's about all
Okay,
we can
we're
talk about
getting
with
kind of.
that. I think Xavier's excited because he's a feminist, but we don't have time to really discuss that or let him argue against what I'm stereotyping him as. So let's talk about Deadpool 2.
All
Deadpool 2
right.
is continuing to move into pre-production because
Finally.
they've cast what's his name? Cable. They've got a director, they've got a script in progress, and they're continuing to cast. At this point, they have cast Jack Kesey as the villain, and the rumor is going to be that he's Black Tom. Can you tell me anything about that?
Okay, being that I'm like the biggest Deadpool fan in the universe, read all of it. Black Tom is kind of an interesting character, in the fact that he's this crazy, weird Irish guy who has a wooden arm that is best friends with Juggernaut to the point that I sometimes wonder if they're a couple. And at one point, in order to, I think he actually steals Deadpool's hand and attaches it to himself for some reason. It's been a very long time since I've read those, but basically he's I think he has some kind of relation to that X-Men character Banshee. I think he's his brother. And Deadpool and Banshee team up to take down Black Tom because I guess there's like this whole thing going on where everyone's gunning for each other because some guy named Tolliver, who I guess is Cable's clone, maybe, or something.
He's so I looked it up. He's a cousin of Banshee. He's Banshee's cousin.
Okay, yeah, that's what he is. Yeah, I might be getting two different stories mixed up. It might be just like Deadpool's first solo series and then Circle Chase, which is a different one, I think. Or I
Black
don't know.
Tom was also
But,
a longtime criminal partner of the super strong villain Juggernaut until Juggernaut's reformation.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Well, I mean, I even remember an old Spider-Man book where Black Tom and Juggernaut just showed up on in a boat to New York, and then Juggernaut was just like, "Hey, hang on, I'm gonna go have a crossover with Spider-Man. Be back in a while." And they showed up a month later.
Okay, so his power is basically that he can send out shockwaves and like blasts of force and heat through wood. So he's kind of like Gambit, except a little bit more specific.
Kind of like Gambit, also sort of mixed with Magneto, except instead of metal, it's wood. And if you think about that, that's kind of interesting, just because like how many things have wood in their structure that you could use.
And wood
for
is the
fight
one
scenes
thing
with
that
him.
the sonic screwdriver can't deal with. So that's interesting.
Oh my
too.
God, we finally found the perfect counter to the Doctor. It's some random guy with a goatee and mustache.
And Jack
from
Kesey
90s
is a
Marvel.
fairly unknown actor. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he was in. He's best known for playing. He's on the Strain, I think, as some like rocker person who became a vampire zombie. Whatever.
Oh, that guy, really? Okay, yeah, I watched the first season of The Strain.
He was Gabriel Boulevard, the Master.
Guy. Yeah, that's who he is. Okay, man, there's this really great scene where he was going into the bathroom in a urinal, and then his thing fell off, and then he turned around and then faced the camera, and he was smooth down there like a Ken doll, and he was just like, oh, and it was really horrible and creepy and weird. And I guess like vampires have cloaca instead of junk. So yeah, I guess I'm excited for Deadpool 2. I mean, I'm a little bit happy that we have a villain now, just because I kept thinking, like, God, who could Cable and Deadpool fight?
Let's
but
hope
Black Tom
that
is a good choice.
let's hope that he's interesting, because I can't even remember the name of the villain in the first movie.
It was there was a whole thing about it. Like, the joke was that his name kept getting said.
I don't even remember what it is.
To be said was. Well, I won't tell you, just for funsies.
I only watched
LP
Deadpool
funsies.
once because I hated it, and then I just never watched it again.
Oh.
Oh wait,
We're
I
about
watched
to
it.
get
I
clips
watched
for
it
that
again
review.
to review it, but
Okay.
that was about it.
By the way,
So I've
I
watched it
think,
twice.
As a side note, Deadpool 2 should have Juggernaut in it, and I mean like actual, not the guy from X-Men 3. I mean like actual Juggernaut.
You
seeing
mean
as how-
like Juggernaut
um,
from the last Deadpool movie? No, that's Colossus.
No, Colossus is a different character. Although Colossus did become Juggernaut for a little while,
What?
which is hilarious because at that point he's just so goddamn overpowered that it's like, what, you gotta nerf that guy.
So what?
But
so
okay,
it's-
so like I think now that we have the computer effects to do gigantic characters like that are all muscle, like we can do the Hulk pretty good, or like, you know, Groot or
they
any
did
of those
Colossus
guys.
on a budget of $60 million.
Yeah, we did Colossus with like hardly any money at all. So now that this one's gonna have a little bit more thrown at it, just, you know, for funsies, I think Juggernaut would be a great addition, because I also kind of like that scene where in the middle of a fight he rips Deadpool's mask off and Deadpool just goes like absolutely nuts and then kicks everyone's ass while screaming, "Give me back my face," because he's got
But that's too
self-esteem
dark
issues.
for Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds just needs to stop being an asshole and quit making jokes and do a couple of really emotional scenes. Like he needs to cry. Like he needs to be like really bitter and angry. Like Deadpool isn't just jokes.
Are you kidding? Have you seen the memes? Those memes are
God
A1
damn it!
quality memes.
Those are terrible memes. I am going to do a whole video about how horrible those memes are. Do a whole video
So let's
about
move on
horrible-
before this just devolves into a shouting match. Our final news story is from DC, where Doug Liman was poached off of Gambit a couple of months ago, if you'll remember, by producer Scott Rudin to revive the Justice League Dark movie, which is now titled Dark Universe. And of course,
Which they should probably
irony of
change the title
ironies,
for.
Doug Liman has left DC and Dark Universe, not to be confused with the Universal Dark Universe, but this Dark Universe, and now Dark Universe has no director because Doug Liman is off to direct. I've got the book here. He's off to direct Chaos Walking #1, The Knife of Never Letting Go, which I've been starting to read, and it's actually an interesting book. It's kind of like it's a young adult book, but it's not like a terrible one, because first of all, there's a male lead instead of a female lead, which automatically makes it different from every single previous young adult movie ever made. It's got, and the cast for the movie is Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley.
Really? I had no idea.
So that's kind of interesting. And the main character,
Tom Holland's getting a lot of work lately.
Hewitt, the last boy in Prentice Town, because like before he was born, there was a war. It's like takes place on this colony planet, and like the humans came to this colony planet, and then there was a war between the natives and the humans, and then after that, for some reason that the main character is not privy to, there was a virus, and then a lot of the men died and all of the women died. So there's just like about 100 odd-ish like men, and then there's Tom or whatever it is, Todd, and then he's the youngest, and then they're all
Todd
just sort of
Holland.
living on this planet, and the conceit is that they have this virus in their brains so that everybody can hear each other's thoughts all the time, and they call that noise. So it's like, imagine if
that's
you,
cool.
it's like if Jean Grey couldn't turn off her telepathy ever, basically.
That would be horrible. That's basically what happened to Legion and why he got like is put in a mental institution.
And that's what the book is about. So I haven't finished it, but it's interesting. So that's what Doug Liman's going to do instead of Justice League Dark or Dark Universe
Instead
now,
of-
not
here's-
Universal's Dark Universe, but this other
There's
Dark
a bunch
Universe.
of obscure random characters from DC who are supernatural. Like,
What are we?
I don't know. I
Some
would've
kind
been
of
kinda down for
supernatural
seeing, like,
squad?
what are we? Some kind of supernatural squad now? Fuck's sake. But no, yeah, they got Deadman, who's just, his power is that he's a ghost. That's it. He's a ghost. He possesses people. Or they got Swamp Thing, who's the fucking avatar of the tree. He's like the Lorax mixed with the Hulk.
So he's Groot.
Kinda, except like different. And then they got John Constantine, who's just some drunk guy who loves I guess he's like Ghost Detective Man, and he does spells.
Wasn't he on that one?
And they could add Dr. Fate.
Wasn't he on that one
just...
comic book show that people were sad because it was canceled?
Yeah. Hellraiser. Anyway, and then there was actually a Constantine movie a couple years ago starring Keanu Reeves.
Oh,
and,
Keanu!
It pissed everyone off.
Keanu can't act Reeves.
Oh, he tries. He tries real hard. Give him a break.
I don't.
And then
I'd never give him a break.
And then, you know who else is possibly on the Justice League Dark? Dr. Fate. And basically, he's like Doctor Strange, except if Doctor Strange lost all of his powers when he took a helmet off, and also when he put the helmet on, he had a different personality, and basically got possessed by a ghost.
So he's basically the Enchantress from Suicide Squad.
He's the Enchantress mixed with Doctor Strange.
Some kind of Suicide Squad.
Supernatural Squad. Starring Deadman.
Starring
with the power
Shia LaBeouf
to
as
dead.
John Constantine.
He was in the Constantine movie. That's great. I would be so down. You know what? I don't hate Shia LaBeouf. I know a lot of people do. Sure, he's a giant weirdo and kind of an asshole, but I think he's pretty cool. And I would love to see him in more mainstream movies.
Cool. Instead of in American Honey.
Or in Nymphomaniac Part 1.
So let's move on again. I'm the only one keeping this podcast from being completely disorganized and nonsensical, to our editorials. Now, speaking of the Dark Universe, we're going to be talking about the other Dark Universe, which is Universal's monster movie cinematic epic that we talked about last week.
Universe.
Yeah, I read an editorial on Deadline.com that I thought was interesting, and we discussed it a bit more. So, what do you think? Do you think horror movies will be the next big fad in blockbusters after the comic book movie thing sort of is cranked down a notch? Because I feel like it's just on the point right now where we're reaching critical mass, and comic book movies are gonna become so oversaturated that they're gonna just have to wind down. So
there's not going to be like comic book fatigue where audiences just get bored. It's going to be there's too many coming out. You can't see all of them every year.
So they're going to crank it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Right now Hollywood is in the search for what they're going to be able to make a lot of next. Now they're
we've discussed this before very heavily, and I've said that my hope personally is that after comic book adaptations wind down, we can finally start getting people on board for good video game adaptations.
But that's not going to happen.
Because video game adaptations now remind me a lot of comic book adaptations 20 years ago. Where it's like, they tried, I guess.
Well,
but
put it this way. I don't think studios are going to put that much money into it unless the Gears of War movie is somehow successful, because, look, Assassin's Creed bombed, Warcraft, although it was the highest grossing video game movie of all time, it still bombed and lost money. And the only profitable video game movies are the Resident Evil movies.
Oh, God. Which are actually getting a reboot soon with James Wan directing, I think.
No, he's producing.
Okay.
He's directing
But,
Aquaman.
Yeah. So if I
So let's
that's
talk
my
about
2
the horror
cents on
movies
what I
instead.
think should become the next big fad. Like, I want a bunch of passionate, intelligent people to stop working on comic book movies and go do video game
But
movies.
it's not
just,
going to happen,
you know,
and that's
'cause
not what we're talking about.
That seems like a rather
So stay on topic!
I know! I'm just saying, you gotta let me finish. But currently, I don't think that horror movies, as we know them, like actually scary movies that try to disturb your audience, will become a giant mainstream big thing again.
We're speculation
because with
like,
the Mummy coming out in the big dumb monster cinematic universe,
with the Invisible Man and the Wolf Man and
with
Frankenstein's
Johnny Depp
monster
as the
and all
Invisible
of that.
Man, and then there was also Dracula Untold, which is non-canon now, but
they wanted it to be canon, but then it bombed, so they said no, totally, we're just kidding.
It's the Green Lantern of this cinematic universe.
Yeah, and then of course there's things like Alien Covenant coming back, even though it underperformed by like 15 million. And there's also things like Blade Runner coming back, which is not necessarily horror, but it's definitely
a little bit darker in
that
tone
side of
things. Most things. Yeah. Now, what I'll say is I don't think that these are really... I think they're trying to swindle us because their monster cinematic universe is not actually monsters, like horror, like what it used to be. It's just... Here's a recognizable character from a bunch of movies from the 40s and a bunch of books, and we're gonna do it in a fast-paced action movie type of format.
Although it's like, do we want that sort of like? Because it's clearly not just an action movie. It's like a action horror movie where they're taking a horror movie property and adding a little bit of action into it. So that's the question: is like, do we want this sort of like the horror influence to be the next big thing?
Tom Cruise's Mummy movie. I look at that and I just see it looks like a superhero movie. Is what it looks like.
Kinda.
That's what that's the direction they're going. We're going to direct these like superhero movies. So no, even if this does become a major fad, it's not really technically horror. It's just it's sort of like
darker,
like
spookier.
A reskin of something you've seen already.
It's spookier superhero movies that are not superhero movies.
Yeah.
But they are.
While as like actual horror movies like Alien Covenant that try to like freak out the audience and ask all kinds of weird philosophical questions, those will stick around.
Here's
horror
the thing.
is a genre that
horror
will never
go away. Especially with people like Jason Blum and James Wan. Making them for cheap. Like Get Out and Split. Hugely profitable. Like even although the Alien movie, it's fairly cheap. It only cost $97 million. Like it basically cost what Logan cost.
Nice. Well, I mean, I guess that was a safe bet considering it didn't exactly make its money like it thought it would in the opening weekend. But
it's worldwide. It's at 160 million right now. So ideally, I would say it needs to cross at least the $300-400 million mark. But we'll see what it's doing.
Well, what do you mean? Does it need to just to make sure they make their money back for sure, or in order to get that sequel greenlit? Because at this point, I'm in for the long haul. I really want to see what the fuck happens.
I'd say $300 million to break even.
New trilogy is off to such a weird and awkward start.
That's my bet is 250 to break even, 300 to 400 to get a sequel, because that's around the business that Prometheus did, which was close to 400 million. Let's see, Alien Covenant versus Prometheus. 126 domestic, 276 foreign, so it just cracked 400 million. So that's what you need to look up for it to get a sequel.
All right. I know a lot of people. It's weird seeing other people's reactions to Alien Covenant after we did that Couch Potatoes episode. Because, like, I was really entertained and happy with it, and other people, like, I always, like, kind of put a review embargo on myself. Like, I don't watch any reviews until after I do them, or for stuff. It was sad to see how pissed off and, like, angry everyone was at Alien Covenant. Like, I remember, Your Movie Sucks was talking about how, there were scenes that made him laugh in the theater along with the entire rest of the audience, and I was like, where? I didn't laugh. Maybe when I leaned over to make a joke at David once or twice, but that was about it. And then Red Letter Media would just like listing off plot holes by the planet load, and it was just real sad.
Although, to actually,
Is my opinion wrong? Am I wrong for liking Alien Covenant?
I looked it up.
Do I have shit tastes in horror movies?
I looked it up, and The Mummy does count as a horror movie. It's action horror.
Barely.
That's a subgenre, but it does count as a horror movie.
Okay, how about my benchmark?
If Predator
for,
counts as a horror movie, then Mummy counts as a horror movie.
It's not scary if your main character is in a plane crash and survives, like Nathan Drake style. Like if shit's exploding and like whole buildings are coming down and there's like vehicles
the whole point
flying all
is
over
that
the place, and
in
your
case
hero is
in case you
jumping
haven't
out
looked
of
at
debris.
In case you haven't paid attention to it, the entire point of The Mummy is that he's surviving, and despite that stuff. That's like the whole point.
Is that Tom Cruise keeps jumping out of the way of things like Nathan Drake?
Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea, is that he's been like weird, supernaturally cursed, and that's like the whole plot point, is that like what's her name, Sophia Boutella Mummy, is like using him to regain her power, and she's cursed him to eternal life or something. And he's
so
like,
is that why he didn't die at the end of Edge of Tomorrow? Okay, it all makes sense now.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I could get behind this. This makes sense.
So
Thanks,
yeah,
Tommy Cruise.
And then
by the way,
move
there's
on.
a scene in Preacher where Tom Cruise died.
So I think it's kind of interesting to see where blockbusters go next, because currently, like, this year is very interesting because it's a lot of weird experimental blockbusters that are coming out to see what sticks, like R-rated comic book movie, another Alien movie,
or
Valerian, Kingsman. We're getting The Mummy. We're getting all this weird, interesting stuff. Murder on the Orient Express. Great mustache for Kenneth Branagh, by the way.
Last year was a lot of just like playing it safe, aside from like one or two standouts. It was just a lot of stuff we'd seen already.
It was more of the same.
2016, honestly, in terms of movies, was a little disappointing. Just
because
there
really
wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a lot of experimentation.
But this year, they're just throwing everything at the wall, and that's what I think is. And then it kind of shows that this year is a bit of a transition year. So we're going to see what will come next after comic book movies, and I'm curious to see what happens with Star Wars as well this fall, because
it seems like
I've never
being really far downplayed, man.
Not as many people are as excited about it as people were for Star Wars in 2015, and I really, really hope it doesn't do that well, because I don't want a Star Wars cinematic universe, or at least not a Star Wars cinematic universe as Kathleen Kennedy is envisioning it.
Where it's like 19 Star Wars movies in a row, and all of them take place within the same 20-year time span with the same, like, 6 characters, and it's just like, ugh. Do something new. Show us something like 2,000 years ago. Why not?
Like my Star Wars KOTOR Let's Play.
Boba Fett. Boba Fett sucks. I mean,
Boba Fett's
suit's
boring.
Cool. Boba Fett looks super cool, and that's it.
Star Wars fans, if you like
books and the video games and tell me Boba Fett's a badass there, that stuff was made after the fact. In the movies he was introduced, he sucked. And
he died in a really sucky way. And don't tell me that he survived, because canonically the books where he survived do not exist. So he's dead.
I'm sure that after they did the whole, like, let's just dump all this extra universe shit and make it non-canon, they had to go back and retroactively figure out a way to bring him back again. So they had a comic that was canon where he climbed out. Like, there's a Marvel Star Wars comic, I bet you.
That's such a dumb thing.
Boba Fett survives.
So that basically nerfs the entire tension of that scene from Star Wars Return of the Jedi, because if somebody can just crawl out of that thing, why should we be scared of it in the first place?
Well, he can crawl out because he's got a jetpack and bombs. And he's Boba Fett. He's cool. and he's got a laser rifle, and he's got a cool helmet, and he's also the most unspecial person in the entire universe because he's a clone of another guy who died 20 years ago, in addition to also being a clone of like 6 billion other guys who also died 20 years ago.
So
yeah,
he's
I think the whole
completely
clone
boring.
thing kind of ruined Boba Fett. I really didn't like that decision to make Boba Fett one of, like, just a random member of Legion. You know, there's just a billion different
Plus,
Boba
he
Fetts
wasn't
running
an
around.
interesting character to begin with.
And then you
So
know what?
he's
They
just
made
made
it
even
worse
less
in that
interesting.
fucking cartoon, because then they introduced a planet, like, with the Mandalorians, where everybody on that planet dresses and acts like Boba Fett, and some of them even are cooler than him because they do stuff and they have black lightsabers. And it's like...
And
way
also,
to
there's the
ruin him even
Mandalorian
worse.
Wars in the Knights of the Old Republic games, where the Mandalorians are some weird alien race that want to conquer everybody like the Klingons, and then they lose, and then that's interesting. But then again,
But no, it's a planet
that's
of Boba
not
Fett.
canon either. So basically, anything that's canon makes Mandalorians and Boba Fett boring.
Well, and then there's, in that new cartoon, Star Wars Rebels, they just have girl Boba Fett on the team. There's just a Mandalorian chick with the helmet and the two Jango Fett pistols, and she just
So wait,
floats around on our
he's not
jetpack
even
doing
special?
Boba Fett stuff.
Like, we can just find any guy with that sort of armor on the street and hire him as part of our rebellion?
Yeah, dude, you can just find Mandalorians and just be like, "Yo, you just wanna be our Boba Fett?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I don't even know who that is."
But can I
Sounds
bring my
like a
armor?
loser. But it's like his cool ass armor that makes him special has been reduced to the equivalent of being a T-shirt, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone has one. Oh,
So yeah, Star Wars is
has
lame in
some
case you haven't
problems.
noticed.
I like Star Wars a little, but I'm very, very aware of its flaws. Just like I'm aware of comic book movies having problems. As much as I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's some problems.
But there's
much
not
as
as
I
many
love fucking
problems as
comic
there is
books
with
on
the
their
Star
own,
Wars cinematic universe.
Comic books have problems. Everything I like has problems. I have problems. You have problems. But that's what makes us special. And ignoring
I don't have
those
problems. I'm perfect.
Ignoring those problems is asinine, and art dies when people stop accepting that things aren't perfect all the time. And,
Except for me, I'm perfect.
You can like something, but also be aware that it sucks. That's my 2 cents.
Everything sucks except for me. I'm perfect.
No, you suck. Do you get it? I was doing like a callback. I was saying, I like you, but you suck. You're terrible. But we're friends.
What?
You know?
Are you criticizing me?
No, I'm criticizing your choice of wardrobe. Who wears blue hoodies?
You do.
Fucking red and black all the way. Oh wait, yeah, you're shit. You're right, because of that thing I'm making. Except I
So
cut
you're
the
just as
sleeves
much of
off
a loser
that.
as I am, if in that case.
Well, I need to go Google, like mask lenses now.
So are you
Anyway,
going to actually
let's
talk
answer-
about the next thing?
Oh yeah. Does my spectacular Spider-Man dub thing count as fair use? Because I think it does.
I don't care.
Because I got a
Just make your
copyright
argument.
notification on that. It was the clip was distorted visually, and portions of the audio were completely reconstructed and made new from hand by me. I believe that the clip in nature is transformative and
What clip?
therefore is not a breach of
What clip?
Sony's copyrighted material. I made sure that I changed a lot of it. You know, I mean,
What clip?
There was okay, because I did that video this week. I've been editing it all week. What if Xavier was Spider-Man? Like, just me voicing over random clips. And one of the bits in it was this scene from Spectacular Spider-Man that I like completely redid almost all of the audio except for Sandman's dialogue, basically. And maybe a couple of the punch sound effects, just because like I couldn't find a good enough substitute for the sound of punching someone made of sand. But for the most part, I changed around all the audio, and I even tried to distort the footage just so the copyright thing wouldn't catch it, but it still did anyway. So I submitted a copyright dispute saying that, like, it's not just the clip from the show. Granted, it's very similar, but I did alter a lot of stuff.
Here's the thing, distorting it visually doesn't count. Because you just added a little barrier around the corner, and that doesn't... That's just a trick that us YouTubers use to get around it, but that's not really transformative in and of itself, because you aren't really creating anything new there. You're just trying to outfox the system. But everything else, you might have an argument. Just wanted to distinguish that there.
Yeah, I get you. Well, because I tried this new way of, like, distorting footage just in case, like, the copyright thing, so it's sort of like, the border is just itself but blurrier, and I've seen a couple of other channels do that, and apparently they have no problems when they do it, but I didn't do it right enough, I guess, and I also actually kind of blurred the edges of the screen.
Also, you use a lot more of the audio, and the audio is a lot harder to get around.
Well, the thing about the audio is that while it's extremely similar, it is different, because, like, I would say maybe like 60% of it is, like, completely new stuff. Like, I actually went to that game, Spider-Man Web of Shadows, and, like, turned off the music and just got all kinds of sound effects of, like, smashing shit and punching things and, landing on rooftops, and then inserted that in there over the parts where there was, like, a sound effect mixed in with, the voiceover from the character. And then I got the audio, I got the music from the show, which someone else had to recreate entirely from scratch because it wasn't ever officially, the soundtrack was never put out. So it's technically not even the same song, it's just a perfect recreation of it. And then
but it's close enough for the bots to detect it.
Yeah.
And the audio is a lot harder. So copyright is an interesting place right now, so we'll have to see where it goes forward. Because it affects us directly, because this is Xavier's employment and my part-time hobby, because I don't really earn any money by it, so I guess I just have to call it that.
You'll get there one day. But,
so yeah, let's continue onwards, unless you have anything else to say.
I think we need to have, like, a full-on reformation of copyright laws, because they're kind of broken and kind of stacked in favor of bigger studios and corporations, and not so much the little guy. And with the very different
Xavier.
landscape, yes, with the very different landscape of media that we have currently, it might be time to rethink things. Just because YouTube was not something that was planned for in the original system of copyright laws, and what counts as fair use and what doesn't. And there's, like, a lot of times where it's just such a gray area. The only thing is that
with YouTube, given the volume of content that is released every day, it's kind of hard to adapt the system that we have to it. And if we do, it's very hard to enforce it without just doing the bot system that we have. So any reform is going to be very tricky because of the logistical problems with just how much content goes up on YouTube all the time.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
It'd be difficult to just, like, pay, like, 90 people to sit in a room and then watch things that people disputed copyright claims. How about that?
The thing is, how many copyright claims? Like, 90 people is not enough. You're gonna need
put them in a warehouse, and they'll just work in shifts, just watching as many videos as they can a day.
And who's gonna pay for that? All those people need salaries, and that's not going to be cheap either. Who's going to pay for that? Because YouTube's not going to. It's not in their best interest. They're fine with the way things are going right now.
Well, the thing is that all the content creators are pissed off and upset, and it's horrible, and people aren't.
Well, the thing is, they don't care. They're still making money. They're trying to be Netflix now. So let's move on because this is a complicated topic, and we could talk about all day about this, but we don't have all day because we don't want to waste all your time. So let's move on. Our last subject of the day is some fan questions. Now, we get a lot more fan questions when we were on Xavier's channel, so hopefully next time we'll have a lot more. So if you have a question, type it down below and let us know, okay?
Well, we do have just a few today. Someone asked us, what's our most anticipated game of 2017?
I don't have one. I really don't pay attention. Seriously, I'm not really that big of a gamer, and I do not pay attention to whatever games are coming out at any time. So I just buy things whenever they're on sale on Steam, and that's about it. So I do not have any anticipated games for this year. I'm just going to buy whatever's on Steam.
Yeah, I think it's funny how even though I review games on my channel and I do Let's Plays and stuff, like, I've really fallen out hard of the whole video game sort of, like, environment. Like, I barely get new ones anymore, and I'm not 100% sure when they're even coming out. I guess, maybe if the new Spider-Man game comes out this year, that would be pretty cool. I don't know when Last of Us 2 is coming, but, like, sure, that looks neat. Is there anything else coming out? Is
You're
Evil
asking,
Within 2 confirmed?
You're asking the wrong
Evil
person.
Within 2 is confirmed. I'll be down. I like any big budget survival horror game.
I don't play any of these games. I don't have. Here's the thing. I don't even have an Xbox or a PlayStation. I just play PC, so I only buy games through Steam. So I just buy whatever's on sale. So I do not pay attention to this stuff. I've long since given up on big budget mainstream gaming because it's either disappointing, annoying, overly expensive, or all of the above.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm sure I've said it before, but, like, the only game in the past few years that I said, wow, that looks cool, I hope it's good, and then it came out, and it was good, and I was very satisfied with it, was Resident Evil 7. That game did not disappoint me in any way at all. I was very happy with it, and I still enjoy playing it. I don't think that's going to happen again for a while.
I hope that wasn't a little bit disappointing of an answer, but that's honestly what we think.
At this point, it's just hard to keep up with video games, man. It's just like all
it's hard enough keeping up with movies.
How they disappointed everyone, like No Man's Sky, and it's just like, oh.
It's hard enough keeping up with movies. I don't have any time to keep up with games too.
I'm gonna be watching Trainspotting.
Our next question was for me specifically.
Because I've never seen Trainspotting before. Is it good? I know
Hello?
Obi-Wan's in it.
What are you talking about it?
Someone keeps telling me about some kind of scene where someone throws up in a toilet and there's hallucinations, but no one will tell me the details. And
Why are you talking about Trainspotting? There's a fan question.
Oh, okay. Someone asked me on Twitter what I thought of Amazing Spider-Man 1. I think it's alright. It's probably... Sadly, David and I discussed this earlier. He said it was probably the most forgettable Spider-Man movie.
I said specifically, what do I think of Amazing Spider-Man 1? Wait, there was an Amazing Spider-Man 1? Who was the villain?
Well, because it's not... Yeah, right?
Who was it? Was it Green Electro or the Spider Goblin?
I think you're getting these a little mixed up. But, and by the way, you dumbass, it was Karnak. He's a mix of Doc Ock and Carnage. It was the villain of Amazing Spider-Man 1. How can you not remember that? But, I think it's sad that he's right, because when I think about it, it's just like, it's okay. It's not super good, like good enough to be memorable, like the first two movies from the Raimi trilogy, but it's not super bad, like any Spider-Man movie with 3 villains in it. It's just kind of right down the middle. It's just alright. I don't dislike watching it. I don't put in a ton of effort to watch it a whole bunch. It's just, it exists.
Then our next question, moving on, is this is for me specifically, David, because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. So what do you think of Star Trek VR? Like
I didn't even know that was a thing. Is that like out yet or announced?
No. I'll send you the trailer. It's like because last year at E3, Star Trek released like a little. No, it's called Star Trek Bridge Crew. I'll send you the video that you can watch later. But it's like revealed Ubisoft revealed it at E3 last year. How you're going to be able to like play with your friends and pilot like a starship together on missions. And I think that sounds
that sounds cool.
It sounds like a really good idea because
that at Comic-Con.
They had something like that on Comic-Con. It's the bootleg low rent version of that, but it sounds like a really cool idea for a game because if you look at what Star Trek fans want to do, they don't want to go down to a mission, go down to a planet and shoot a bunch of Klingons like that one Star Trek game that we're not going to mention. They want to pilot the ships. They want to play with their friends, and I think that's a really cool idea. My only complaint is that who is gonna have 4 friends who all have VR headsets to play with you, or 3 friends? Like, my only complaint is that VR headsets are very expensive toys.
I mean, you have to be rich to play it, and you also have to have multiple rich friends to play it with.
At least 3 rich friends to play it with you. I'm not rich, and I don't have rich friends, so it's like I'm not gonna be able to play this. So it sounds like a really fun idea, but I just don't care because I'm never really gonna do anything with it.
Yeah, well, it's just I think that's me personally. I think I'd be excited for VR games once it just becomes like really accessible and like all the tweaks are worked out.
If a
it's still
Vive
so early
costs,
on and it's still so expensive.
A Vive costs $1,000. I'm gonna wait until it costs like $100. Whenever that happens, I'm gonna buy in. But it's too expensive right now. A Vive and an Oculus Rift both cost at least around $1,000 a pop.
And then I know PlayStation VR is like the cheapest solution, but even that's like $300, I think.
Yeah, and plus, if you're playing on a PC like I am, you need to have at least $1,000 or $1,500 computer. So that's $2,500 plus however much you're playing on the game, you're plonking down for the game. So $2,500 times 4 is $10,000. So just one game is a $10,000 investment between all 4 people, and that's just ridiculous. That's insane. I don't have it's not worth it.
Yeah. It's a cool concept, but like goddamn, like take down the prices a little. I don't think the all of VR should be as expensive as it is, considering how like not optimal it is currently. There's still so many kinks in all the systems to work out. I would say make it expensive when you got it figured out and you know it's like worth that money, because a lot of
right
that time,
now it's just an expensive nerd's toy.
An expensive nerd's toy that's very likely to not work.
And I'm a nerd, but I'm not a rich nerd. So there we go. So basically, I'd love to play it, but I don't think I ever will. So let's move on before I get even more depressed.
Oh my god, Freeman's Mind 2 Episode 2 came out today!
What?
I'm sorry, that was just an aside. Hey, audience, if you've ever heard of the show Freeman's Mind, go watch it. It's good.
So let's talk more. Another question for me was, what do you think if they brought back Star Trek in animation, like the original crew in an animated movie, like they did with Batman: Return of the Caped Crusader, which I have seen, by the way. I own it on DVD. What do you think about that? My question is, I don't want it. Here's the thing, I don't want
it because we're running out of old Star Trek cast members.
That's the point. Like, it's like
we
with
lost
the Batman,
some of the most important ones.
Can I just say that like it wouldn't work because with the Batman special, they had they at least had the basic main characters, but
they had the main 2 most important characters.
They had
everyone else.
Burt
they could
Ward
fill in the blanks.
and Adam West, and Julie Newmar was icing on the cake. So at least they had the main 2. But with Star Trek, Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley are both dead. So it'd be super depressing to have old William Shatner speaking to DeForest Kelley and Leonard Nimoy impersonators, and that would be super sad.
It would just feel like. Yeah, it would feel sad and weird.
Like
and
the
awkward,
only Nichelle Nichols is still alive.
Do this.
let's see.
giant casting process to find like someone who could sound like Spock without being Spock.
Yeah. So let's see, like, William Shatner, George Takei, let's see, George Takei
is super nice in
Walter
real life.
Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols.
I say.
Is there anybody else from the original cast still alive? Because DeForest Kelly died, James Doohan died, Leonard Nimoy died. It's so depressing.
I know, you're bumming me out. Well,
so this is why it wouldn't
work. Did I ever
work.
tell you about George Takei at Denver Comic Con a couple of years back? He is like the nicest guy ever in real life. Like, he is so just cool with chatting with people. He was really nice to my little sister, and like, of course, she just like, you know, chatted like a bunch of weird nonsense to him because she was like 6 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's such a cool guy. George Takei, you got my vote if you want to run for president.
George Takei is cool, but
I mean, seeing as how every celebrity is doing that next time,
I don't think they should ever have, like, if you ask me, Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country was the best send-off that the original crew could ever get. So if we ever bring them back in any respect,
it was just such a neat little bow to tie everything up and end on.
Like, even Star Trek Generations was disappointing because it brought back people after their ending, which was disappointing because it wasn't as good. So I think that there should be nothing with the original crew after Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country, except for those bits in Star Trek: The Next Generation where Spock shows up.
So
those were good too.
I don't think I want Star Trek to come back as some kind of weird cartoon Frankenstein where
Here's
they
the
don't
only
have all
thing,
the voice
is that,
actors and it just doesn't feel right.
Like, Star Trek is not, it should not be and should never be based character driven. It shouldn't be like a comic book movie where we need to have Captain America, we need to have Steve Rogers, we need to have Bucky Barnes and all that. It shouldn't be like that. It should be about the ideas and the adventure, and the characters, they're very important.
The characters are more of a vehicle.
We shouldn't
for this
be
adventure.
obsessed about having the original characters that we had before. We need new characters.
Which is why we've had so many Star Trek TV shows with other completely different casts, all like entirely unique.
Yeah, and
those worked.
The thing is, Star Trek is about moving forward. So let's move forward with the franchise, tell new stories with new characters. Instead
of just having like a weird hodgepodge of like new ones mixed with the old ones, like Star Wars.
Yeah, I said this in my video about Star Trek Discovery, but once again, I do not want the established characters to come back even if they're recast. I want new characters in a new future timeline.
Just do new stuff. All right, here, come up with a new alien species right now, David. We're gonna pitch our new Star Trek species. Okay, so it's a species that's
very intelligent.
Pure energy. Wait, no, they've done that a lot. Okay, it's a bunch of cyborgs. No, fuck. It's a lava monster. No shit.
A guy in a giant fur coat. No, we've done that either.
What about some?
Here's the thing, here's the thing about the Star Trek races is that they have a wide cast of really interesting races, so we don't need new races. We need new characters and new stories with those races. Like, what's happening in the Klingon Empire? What about the Ferengi or the Cardassian Union? What's happening with all these different cultures?
For me, I would just be like, all right, let's do something weird and off the wall. So let's have a detective noir thriller set on Vulcan.
No.
Where everyone's like trying to solve a murder mystery without showing emotion.
Star Trek is not about detective noir. It's
I'm
about
not saying have a whole
excitement
TV show about that. I'm saying it would be nice to have like a one-off story like that. Where it's just, here's something in the universe, so it feels a little bit more fleshed out than just, here's another starship captain, here's another, like, cool, emotionless guy on the crew, here's another
But
cool
I like
alien
the emotionless
that
guys.
Everyone's a little weary of.
The emotionless guys is everybody's favorite character. For example, Odo, Spock,
stupid.
Data, they're all really cool characters.
What if there was just a spin-off show where all three of them lived in an apartment?
This is why you're a terrible person.
You know what, everyone? Fucking, if you're good at animation and you have access to a large pool of sound clips from that show, make that for me, okay? Make a spin-off where Odo, Data, and Spock live in an apartment together and have roommate squabbles, but none of them ever raise their voice above like perfect speaking tone, and no one ever gets like angry or sad. They just, it appears that someone has drank the milk.
I think this is a good point to
I will
stop
go out
it
to purchase more.
before we just devolve into
apologize, sir,
utter
for
rambling.
That was me who drank the milk.
So
well,
I think
I'm glad we came to a
stop it.
I'm glad we came to a conclusion.
Stop it. This is totally rambling nonsense. We need to stop
it's
before
hilarious.
It becomes even more rambly. So I think
just like
that's about it
Millie
for this
Bobby
week.
Brown as Godzilla.
This is super
Yona
real.
thinks
This
I'm
is
funny.
super rambly. This is the super rambly show. We will see you next week back on
David.
Cautiously Realistic.
David.
We'll see you later. Goodbye.
David, what's the title of this podcast? David, what's the title of the podcast, David? It's subject to change. We're gonna change the subject. I'm sorry. Well.